Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name's Tim Baghurst, and I'm joined today by Zach Shank. He is the athletic director at Eagles View Academy in Jacksonville, Florida. He's also a podcaster. The Winning Way podcast is his. Zach, thanks so much for joining me. I'm really interested in this one just from your perspectives of working in private schools and overseeing a variety of different sports. But just if you wouldn't mind, tell us how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on. You and I connected a little while back ago, had you on as a guest, and here we are kind of returning the favor. So I do greatly appreciate that. But how I got started and plugged into the world of high school athletics was 2014. I'd finished up my playing career in 2012, but needed to finish up some credits and some courses. So my coach talked to me about hiring me on as an assistant at the college that I was at here in Jacksonville, and Coach Jones really took me under his wing. But I knew that there was something a little bit more outside of the realm of that, and then I wanted to kind of transition to high school sports. And so what ended up happening is I started to put my degree to work, which is an education and sports administration degree, and got a teaching job. And the school that I landed did not have athletics. And basically handed me the keys to the kingdom and said, hey, we want an athletic department. Go for it. I'm 24 years old. I've never done this before. Never been an AD. Never was even an assistant AD. I've simply just been an assistant basketball coach. And so I started it out. And one of the key things was hiring good people around me. And hired an assistant, Kyron Williams. And he started plugging away, and we got going. And in the 3 years that we were there at Cornerstone, we established volleyball, boys and girls basketball, and then the following year, so our second year, we had 8-man tackle football, which is big here in the state of Florida. And so we accomplished some pretty good things there in that first year, and then made the move to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I was an AD for 5 years at News Christian Academy, and had some positive things there and some success in Raleigh. And my wife and I decided to make the move back to Jacksonville, Florida, where we got family and things like that. We've got a 2-year-old daughter, so we want to get her back around grandparents and family and friends and things like that. And so here we are, and made the transition over to Eagles View Academy here on the west side of Jacksonville, and started in June, and been trucking away since.
And just a reminder, if you're watching live, you can ask questions of Zach. Just put it in your chat box, and we'll get it to him. You said you had some success in North Carolina, and then you moved. How do you define success as an athletic director?
Well, the major thing is it's not what I can do, right? It's who I can bring in to coach those sports, because I'm not coaching every sport, and I wouldn't be in this business if I had to coach every sport, right? And I think a lot of them would agree with that. But it's all about who you bring in. Do they match up with the culture that you were trying to put out there? Do they match up with the vision and the mission statement of, first and foremost, the school, the athletic department, and so on? And so that's a big thing, is success in my eyes as an AD. And some ADs may, say otherwise, but it's finding and hiring the people who are willing to continue your mission, the athletic department, the school's mission, and then also incorporate that culture into their team. They're the ones that are dealing with the athletes on a daily basis. They're the ones dealing with the parents on a daily to weekly basis with games and practices. Are they taking the culture and that idea that you have brought them in to cultivate, and are they pushing it out there? And so, being able to get plugged in Raleigh, it was difficult at first because I didn't know anybody. I wasn't involved in club sports. I didn't know anybody who's coaching. I didn't know anybody there. So I really had to get out there and hit the streets, if you will, and find some good coaches, and was able to lock in some new hires, but also lock in some previous coaches that were there under the previous AD. And they really helped kind of help with that level of success. So in my eyes, that's what I would deem success, not in the teams that I coach, not in those things, but bringing in those coaches to be able to continue the culture and the vision of the department.
I've been around Florida. We were talking about this before the show. I've been around Florida a lot this fall. And one of the things I hear across Florida is the struggle to recruit and retain quality coaches.
Yeah.
What is your experience working in a private school that might have a different structure, that might have different incentives? How do you recruit and retain coaches that are excellent and want to stay there?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of 50-50 in a sense, right? Like we don't always have the resources that say a public school has. But at the same time, sometimes we have more resources than certain public schools do. And that's a big thing that we have seen where we can provide more opportunities for our coaches and our teams to maybe go to team camps during the summer to do different things like that maybe they wouldn't have the access to do at a public school and things like that. The other side of it, and it can be, again, a pro and a con, 50-50 here, is stipends, right? We've got to figure out, hey, how can we make it work within our budget? We're not given a budget by the county. We're not given a budget by the district, whatever you want to say. What goes out has to come in. So it's basically a 0-0 type thing. And if the school, and I've been at all types of schools where the stipends are factored into overall payroll and it doesn't hit the athletic department. But then I've been at schools where, hey, what you want to pay your coaches is on you and it's going to come out of your athletic budget. So it almost kind of creates this level of fundraising / grinding a little bit more to bring in some revenue. And so sometimes that helps. And then also there's times where it doesn't help retain these coaches. Also another thing, and I don't mean it, in any rude way or whatever, but sometimes our players and our parents are a different culture, and it helps coaches stay in a world where coaches are just getting bombarded by parents and players over the stupidest and smallest things, playing time and you yelled at my player at the end of a practice or something, these trivial things. It helps us retain because of the system that we're able to create here and really how easily accessible our coaches can be sometimes, just to basically break down those walls and talk to the parents, say, hey, here's what's really going on. And so that helps out a lot as well. And then also just support as a whole from my office trickling down to my head coaches, to the assistant coaches, and so on. You talk with public school ADs and you talk to some people and, they're like, hey, when I replaced my athletic director here at such a public school, students didn't even know who the AD was. And so here at private school where you're smaller or, you're more accessible, that to me has been a game changer, just being approachable, being accessible by parents, players, coaches, and so on. And I think that helps out with the process as well.
You may not be able to tell me this, and if not, that's okay. But the average stipend for a coach in Florida right now is, on average, something about $2,500 per sport. You see it higher in private schools?
In certain sports, it is higher.
On average?
Say that again.
On average, what would you say?
So for instance, like we have middle school sports here because we got 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We're a K through 12 school. So we've got 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then we've got our 9th through 12th grade sports, our high school, so JV and varsity sports. Typically, our middle school coaches are somewhere between that 15 to 2,500 mark, and then it just kind of goes up from there.
Okay. We see coaches in Florida moving from Florida to Georgia to Alabama. And one of the big reasons is I can get more money for what I do. And let's be honest, coaches across the country, especially in the school systems, are vastly underpaid for the amount of hours that they spend working with kids and doing what they do. How do we change that? How do we, looking from your top-down approach, how do we change that to ensure that coaches are being rewarded for the time and effort and expertise that they're putting into their programs?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, that's a difficult question because sometimes the level of support can be subjective and to different people, right? And simply, a coach getting 3 new basketballs every year is great support to him, but then that could be terrible support to somebody else, right? And obviously that's maybe a terrible analogy to use there, but I think you guys can get it. The biggest thing about retaining and keeping those coaches and getting that support is just it comes from involvement. It comes from being involved. With my coaches, I always tell them, hey, like I need your wants and I need your needs. What do you need right now that if you didn't have it to start the season, you could not complete and compete within your season. And so they give me their needs, and I do everything that I can to make sure that I get those needs within reason, right? If you come to me and say, hey, I need 10 new footballs. Well, you've got 4 brand new footballs that just rolled out at the beginning of August. Let's maybe meet in the middle and let's go 6 or 7, right? And so you have those, and it's really just trying to get their needs in comparison to their wants. And so what I try to do is every year is get a want. If you've got a big want or you've got a big ask that you want something that can help your team and help your department overall, then let's work together to get that. And so one thing here at EVA that has been, kind of a game changer with being new is just getting out here and grinding with our coaches and saying, hey, what can we do to get a better system than what we have? I'm not trying to change the wheel or reinvent the wheel or change what we already have, because, the person that I replaced was here for 15 years. It's a well-oiled machine, but there are things that we can do to tweak it to make it a little bit smoother. And that's the big thing. And keeping coaches is just giving them, I think sometimes, and referring back to a podcast that on mine, an episode that I had, somebody referred to an AD as being the fullback that's just clearing the way for our coaches. And that's my job, right? It's my job to do the dirty work so that our coaches can look good and can go out and win on Friday nights and throughout their season. I'm the one behind the scenes. I'm the one, sweating, and that's great. And that's what they need to see so that that pressure is taken off of them. And I think where we're missing the mark sometimes is that we're putting so much on our coaches to do the administrative side of things, along with the athletic side, the coaching and things like that.
Professional development is something that I've also heard about in my Florida trips. And it's not that coaches don't want to do it. It's that they either A, don't have the time to do it, or B, don't have the financial resources to do it. Right. And I've had coaches tell me, your master's is, well, in Florida anyway, about 15 grand. And that's going to take a long time for me to pay off. Why would I go and do something like that? And the answer sometimes is that's a fair point. And I would be asking the same question if I was in your shoes. How do you support coaches to make sure that they are getting better rather than just the same old every year, while we know sports and people are changing constantly, and knowledge, we should add?
Yeah, I mean, professional development is key, not just in coaching, not just in education, but in any aspect of life and in any job that we do. We should always be getting better. And one of the things that I always talk about is perfecting our craft. What do you do? Well, make sure that you're perfecting it. Be the best, whatever it is that you do that you can be. And so one thing that I do when I meet with our coaches, and we just recently had a winter coaches meeting. Hey, if there is a clinic that you want to go to, and it is within reason, travel, expenses, and all that other stuff, I will take care of it. It's a necessary thing that we have to do within our department. I am okay with paying for that for those coaches, because I know that in the long run, it's going to pay off for the overall success of our department. And so that's the big thing with it. Now, if it's something that is, astronomical or whatever, then, hey, we're going to maybe sit down and we're going to talk about it. Maybe we'll meet in the middle and I'll cover half of it, or I'll do this or that. But it's always my goal to provide resources and basically, finances for our coaches to have professional development. Now, unfortunately, I'm not paying for a master's program, but at the same time, we could, work out some things for clinics and meetings and stuff like that they want to go off and learn more about their sport.
Well, this timing is well done, Zach, because June 2nd and 3rd, we're planning on having a clinic here at FSU. So we expect participation from your group, and our plan hopefully is to make it free. So if coaches can cover their travel, maybe a night at a hotel, our goal is to make sure that they don't have to spend money out of their pocket to be in education.
Absolutely.
Question in the chat box, maybe somebody I'm guessing name. How do you work your marketing at your school? How do you ask head coaches of each sport to help? It's a good question, because a lot of times coaches just think they're supposed to coach, but really they have to be heads of a department, and they have to promote their department, raise money for their department, and so on. How do you do it at your school?
Well, the major thing is partnering with them. We need the information from the coaches because I can't be at every single game, and we have to make sure that we're getting that info. So actually, in our coaches manual that every coach that we go through and review with our coaches, there's an area in there that basically says, hey, we need to you need to send a little blurb, if you will, over to the athletic office at the end of your night that basically gives us an update of what the final was, win or lose. Obviously, we can tell that if there's a major highlight that occurred, and if there was either somebody maybe snagged a picture or got a video of some sort, send that over. And within our department, we use a platform called Gipper, and that is how we put our social media graphics out there. And we uniform our social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, they're all there. And I could get going in that, but we'll save the hassle of the breakdown of social media and marketing aspects of it. But it's very important to our athletic department because it's how people get the news and information. We put a weekly schedule out there at the beginning of the week, and that's how a lot of parents know, or are reaffirmed what's going on outside of what their coaches are telling them. Oh, hey, yeah, my daughter's got a game today, but there's also this going on. Hey, let's go check it out. And so what we've seen is it cultivates, again, these two words, cultivating our culture here at EVA, to get support from everybody with every other sport as well.
I wouldn't mind actually going into the weeds a little bit because coaches do need to know how to market their programs and athletic directors as well. Where are you seeing the interest in your activities? What social media platform? Have you found any strategies that are more effective than others that really engage followers?
Yeah. So you have to look at the breakdown of it like this, right? Facebook, and let's look at our three major ones. We don't do TikTok, we don't do Snapchat, and like none of that stuff. We do your three major platforms. And here's how it usually works, right? By the time you learn one of those major platforms, somebody comes out with something new, and then you're constantly always learning. So we just had to be like, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. So Facebook, you can think of it this way, right? It's parents, grandparents, older, demographics where it's maybe 35 and above. Well, that's more of an informational standpoint. Hey, we put the information out there. We know we're covering parents and grandparents. Twitter, it's more of an athletic-based platform. And I forget the statistic, and I don't want to misquote it, but a couple months ago, I want to say they said Twitter was the highest high school sport used platform when it came to coaches and different things like that. And that's huge. So we put that out there so, other schools and things like that, we can kind of communicate, and coaches, whether it's on their recruiting trails or whatever they're doing, they can go there and they can find it and see it. And then lastly, Instagram, that is more so for our student body. That's kind of that demographic that we cover, your middle and high school age kids. We're putting that there for their benefit so that they can promote themselves, promote their classmates. And one of the big things that we've seen, and not just here at EVA, but even at when I was in Raleigh at News Christian, when we started and we organized our social media platforms into one, unified thing, we started to see the non-athletes sharing their friends who were athletes out on social media. And what it did is it created this culture within the student body that it didn't separate student athletes from non-student athletes. It was all one. And so you've got the guy who's in charge of chess club sharing out the top basketball play of the night last night. And so we really saw that connect, and that was a solid, win for us within our department. And we're seeing that here at EVA as well.
Think now of being an athletic director as a whole. What are some of the challenges, or maybe the biggest challenges that you find that you faced or do face in your role as AD?
Honestly, parents, right? Like that is, and that's a challenge. I don't want to say it's probably the worst or the hardest challenge, but it's a challenge. And then also like communication with on that level as well is, sometimes you have a coach who doesn't do great communicating. And so you're constantly, and who is asking those questions? Parents, right? So it kind of always reverts back to that. But I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way, but we live in a immediate success culture where they want it now, right? And so playing time and things like that has always been, from a year-to-year standpoint, something that we've always had to kind of deal with. And the way that we operate is, hey, we tell them straight up front that this is not the YMCA. If you want to play and you want to get a participation trophy, then I will give you the number to the YMCA director, and you can go on down. We're here to put the best team on the field, on the court, to win and to be successful, and to put Eagles View Academy athletics out there within the city and within the state of Florida.
All right, we're going to take a little break. We're going to be back in a minute. I got a couple more questions for you, Zach, before we close it out. But just want to introduce FSU coach to everybody.
Absolutely.
The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring. All of our classes have the word coach or coaching in them, and they're taught by coaches for coaches.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills, even some of the mental performance behind, what it goes into being an athlete. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach, so I thought joining this master's program would help me learn different ways to attack my job. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
All right, we're back in. I'm joined with Zach Shank. He's an athletic director at a private Christian school in Jacksonville. Zach, I want to ask you about that. Given that you are at a private school, how do you balance that kind of ideology of winning, as you were just talking about, versus enjoyment of sport, participation, camaraderie, respect for opponents, etc.? Where is that line?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we hold our students and coaches and student athletes, to a standard that matches what we have here. And so at EVA, within our student manual and our regular school student manual against our athlete student manual as well, or our athletic manual, if you will. And basically what we've done is we take the mission statement of our school, we take the idea of what we want our students to accomplish while they're here at EVA, and we incorporate it into our athletics. There is a line there, right? Like, we do care about the levels of sportsmanship. We care about making sure that we're learning as we go along. There's so many life lessons that can be learned in athletics, right? Team building, working together with somebody. Hey, I may not like this person, but I got to sit by him every day in an office. Oh, well, you got to get over it. And what are you going to do? Quit your job? So we're teaching these life lessons that maybe they won't get, if they were somewhere else. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't if they were at another school or whatever, but we take that approach and we say, hey, how can we educate and teach our kids how to deal with these life lessons, or how to learn these life lessons, and then take them and hopefully be better, people in society when the time comes for that. So it can be difficult sometimes, because you do get the comment of, hey, well, you're a Christian school, why do we care about winning? Well, why are we putting our players on the court then? Right? I jokingly say this, with our coaches, and it's like, winning is not everything, but it's everything. Right? And they all kind of look at me and like, wait, what'd you say? I'm like, yeah, you heard me right here. It's winning is not everything, but it is everything within what we're trying to accomplish, along with all of these other things as well.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to when you were talking about, seeing a coach shouting at an athlete or something like that, where I get the whole idea of winning and winning the right way, but there's also that balance of coaching the right way too. And I think there's more delicacy for you in the role that you have versus a public school where, oh, well, that's just how we do it. That's normal. That's right. Normal life.
Well, and one of the major things is, I'm not going to sit here and have a coach interview for a position if it's not somebody that doesn't match what our school would hire as a regular employee, right? With us being a Christian institution, we have certain requirements that we need from our potential employees, and we match that within our athletic department. So you avoid the potential of massive amounts of profanity being yelled at players, like maybe would at a public school where they don't necessarily care about those things. You're going to get a devotional to a certain extent every week within a practice, or prayer before a game. And that's just something that we do here as a Christian school. And that's something that we see as important within our school, but also within our athletic department, every entity of our school as well.
So a question came through in the chat box. It's John, who says, what's the greatest piece of advice you've received?
I feel like that's an interesting question, because you get so much advice doing this job, right? And you're asking so many questions. But honestly, if I had to think of one thing, it was from Coach John Jones, who's the athletic director at Trinity Baptist College here in Jacksonville, and worked for him for an amount of years. But honestly, the advice was never burn a bridge. And you never know when you're going to need that connection at another point. And the way that athletic world works, everybody knows everybody, or someone knows someone who knows you, who can help you, and things like that. And so it's this never ending, web that is ran. And so, yeah, you might disagree with somebody, but never burn a bridge. And, it's hard not to do that sometimes when our emotions take over and things like that. And sometimes we just want to walk away, but it's important to make sure that we don't burn a bridge, because you never know when you're going to need that person again, or kind of comes full circle.
Thinking then on advice for coaches, aside from that, looking at the coaches that you've worked with, you've overseen, who you've played for, in this environment where coaches in many ways are venerated for being a coach, but at the same time denigrated for not having qualifications, having to do a lot of work for little pay, etc. What advice would you give somebody who's maybe interested in becoming a better coach, moving up in the coaching world, or even becoming a coach?
Yeah, I think something that's important to understand in that is, and no matter how old you are, right? Like a couple podcasts, like I'm always like, hey, for the young coaches or for the young ADs, and it's like, we all need advice. Doesn't matter what our age is. Doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 25 years and I've been doing it for 5. It doesn't matter. We all can take the same piece of advice and learn something out of it. And so, two things: always read. I did not grow up as a major reader. I just didn't enjoy it. And but as I've gotten older and as an adult, I have learned to love reading if it helps better me as a father and husband, as a Christian, and as an athletic director or a coach. And so those are the styles of books that I want to read. How can I take something and directly apply it to my life? But reading something to make you better in what you're doing or as a person, and so on. And the second thing is find somebody that has been in the business at least 10 years longer than you have, and ask them questions. Those were two things there that I was told probably back in 2014, 2015, just starting out, was read and find somebody to be a mentor to, or to mentor you. And then hopefully in time, you can do the same thing. So those are two things that have stuck with me. I've got many of those people that, I'll call up and ask a question and things like that, and constantly reading, and rereading stuff. You read one thing and you read it and you learn something from it. You go back and you reread it and you learn something completely new that you didn't see the first time. And that's something that always sticks with me.
So what's just follow-up question, book that every coach should read should be what? Other than the ones I wrote.
Other than the ones you wrote, there you go. So honestly, as an athletic director, that's where I'm going to take that question to. I love the athletic director toolbox. In fact, I'm going to grab them. And then the athletic director's toolbox by Jake Von Sheer. He is down in South Florida. I know you have to know him because he was in the Tallahassee area there for a while.
He's been on my show. I've been on his. You might find me books.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So he's got 2 editions out, and you look at it and you're like, hey, what, interesting. What is it? And basically it's a hodgepodge of advice for athletic directors. So you're getting multiple different things here. And I mean, you see how easy I just pulled both of these off of my bookshelf, right? So they are accessible. Another one would be Scott Jarvis. He just came out with the DNA of an athletic director. That's a big one that I've been reading and going through. And those are 3 that are on my shelf that float from my shelf to my backpack because I might be looking for something, or I really want to go back through and read that or whatever. But those 3 are there, and then I've got one more. It's called Warrior Culture. Again, right here with those other ones, very accessible to on my shelf. But that's written by Josh Templeton. He's up in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, and he is at Boyd Buchanan School. But he wrote Warrior Culture, and basically what it does is he breaks down warrior culture, right? And I know that's, you just repeat that there, but it's how can you take the most important warriors in history and how can we use that within the high school athlete? How can we use it within the department? And how do we relate as a student athlete to that warrior? But those 4 books have been, I say, monumental within the last, I would say, at least four years for me. I know some of them have just come out, but those have been huge for me within my last 3 to 4 years here.
Last question then. If somebody wants to reach out to you, has questions of their own, maybe they couldn't ask live, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, pretty active on everything, but one of the main places that you can get with me is Twitter, and that is right there at the bottom there, Coach_ZTS. Pretty active on there. Try to be pretty active, but try not to let it take a bunch of my time. I am a millennial, so I can get stuck in that social media scrolling. But I will reach out to you. Feel free to shoot me a message and give me a follow. Love connecting and learning, and obviously with my podcast, if it's something that you guys can listen to, and always have somebody maybe jump on and be a guest. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me and let me know.
That's right. The Winning Way podcast. Be sure to check that out on Spotify as well. Of course, our own FSU Coach Spotify podcast. We have all of these interviews on there as well. So be sure to do that, as well as like and subscribe. But on behalf of myself, Tim Baggers, and Zach Shank, thanks so much for watching.
Absolutely.